Okay, here I am up in Kentucky, which is the state just north of where I live. And I've been here all night. I'm here at Sugar Bay, and I just wanted to do some photographing before the rain set in. I don't know if it's going to be a big rain, little rain, whatever, but I wanted people to see the beauty up in Land Between the Lakes this time of year, whenever the colors are gleaming bright, in which they're not that bright today because the sun isn't shining. This individual just pulled up here, give or take about 30 minutes ago, just about dawn. Had a Ranger Trail boat, him and his buddy, and they set sail towards trying to catch some fish. I asked him, I said, well, you think you're going to catch anything? He said, well, the wind's going to be awful high today. I don't know. Sometimes these guys can catch it just right before a front comes in, and they can really snag them. Other times, they don't do so well. Guess a lot of it's got to do with skill and luck and being blessed or not being blessed. But the color foliage up here, if you take notice, a lot of those leaves are just half colored, half red, and they're still half green. And then the yellows and the deep reds and still the vibrant colors here. I guess what I want to say here is this is pretty well natural on the Tennessee-Kentucky lakeside up here by Grand Rivers, Kentucky, give or take about another 10 miles. Every fall, they bring the pool down, or try to bring the pool down this low, to where if there's an extensive rainfall that winter, I'm going to use the expression of this crater that is man-made, that they have formed here, will work as a reservoir. That way, if there is extensive rains, this reservoir will fill it up, and that way they can control, or halfway control, the flooding of the rainfall that had fallen into this area. That's the mindset in behind it anyway. In addition to building a dam and putting turbines on it, that way what water that you do release into the other parts of the up here, it would be the Cumberland River, and the Cumberland River would go off into the Ohio, and then the Ohio would, and the Cumberland and the Tennessee would basically all merge towards going into the Mississippi. Now, I was told yesterday, I don't know how true it is, but TVA has been discussing towards dropping the pool even another foot to try to make up the differences on that in which what is occurring right now on the mighty Mississippi. That could have just been hearsay, but then again, most of these guys up here that has their ear to the iron, per se, they pretty much know what's in order and what isn't in order whenever it comes to different things that need to be done and don't need to be done by the TVA, because of so many people that live up here that has turned their whole lives around this recreation man-made area that now they depend upon, of course, not only their luxury, but also a lot of them depend upon their survival, because a lot of them does rely upon a good mess of fish sometimes once a week, twice a week, whatever. I thought that I would get up here, and last night I went up to the sacred site area off Legal Road 141, but there was a group of people up there that was already camping, and I didn't want to disturb whatever that they was involved in. They may have just been hikers, may have been bird watchers, may have been turkey hunters, or they may have been bow and arrow hunters or deer hunters. I just know that I don't want to crowd nobody whenever it comes to coming up into these areas, because first of all, the majority of people are spooked in not knowing who to trust, who not to trust. And of course, whenever you have law enforcement that has been doing what they have been doing, basically our politics, to the point that even they cannot be trusted, well, then you have a formula of a very, very unpleasant environment. I know a lot of people think, well, this guy, he's obsessed with all this stuff. Well, yeah, I am. I'm obsessed with nature. I'm obsessed with beauty. I'm obsessed with tranquility and peace. And these are the things that I've been obsessed with pertaining to a holy, righteous God, and these are the things that I'm going to continue to stay obsessed with as long as I'm here on this planet that God has given me to live on, to foster, and to try to leave it in a better condition than what it was before I ever come into the world. Obviously, with all the pain and distress and all the resistances, it has brought a great deal of anguish into a great deal of people's lives on the planet. I'm going to leave here now, and I'm going to put my phone down while I'm talking, saying different things about different areas up here that I've encountered with. And then I'll pick it back up, and we'll do some more actual viewing of whatever that we're looking at. Because like I said, I wanted to come up here before this rain come in, because usually everything changes. It's almost like a streak of magic happens in the woods like this, a forest like this, whenever it goes through a harsh summer towards it being dry, and you see the different colors, the different moods, the different I guess you'd say atmospheres that each tree brings forth in its own life. But as soon as it comes a real big rain, all of this would change. The whole atmosphere would change, and it will basically become unified in that change, to where you'll no longer have its independency like you do now with the various colors, because each tree has its own independent characteristic, and each tree gives out its own gleaming yellows and its gleaming reds and its gleaming oranges in the degree towards how it speaks for itself. This is its life that's actually getting ready to hang on a second, actually getting ready to go down into the root system, to where that life can now preserve itself underground and get ready for another year next year. Hey, hoy! I seen y'all up here last night. I didn't holler at you. I didn't see no automobile up here. I stayed all night up here on the boat ramp. It's a pretty good place to stay, isn't it? You care if I have a word with you a second? I just said here. I'm Dennis Jackson. I'm just a camper just like you, an outdoorsman, one that loves nature. I've spent a lot of time up here. Have you spent a lot of time up here? I got you. Well, this is a very, very pleasant time to be up here. Is in the fall, whenever the changing of the colors and everything. It is pretty, isn't it? I seen one guy that come in with a fishing rig, gonna go fishing. I asked him, I said, well, how do you think things are gonna become? You think you're gonna tear them up? He said, I don't know. The wind's supposed to be awful high today. He said, I don't know. I guess whenever you pull your rig in and go fishing, you don't never know from one day to another whether or not you're gonna do good or you ain't. Well, it's a beautiful day until it starts raining. I think it's supposed to, you may want to start picking up stuff. Don't want it to get all soggy wet. Did you? Well, I'm going to get on. Take care of yourself. Good talking to you. Happy trails. I was going to stay here last night because they've got a picnic table and all right here, but because they was close, I didn't want to crowd them because I know that I wasn't going to be pulling out all my garb towards my tent and stuff, and because of it, I chose not to pull over here next to them last night. I'm going to go up this way. I don't know that I can make it, depending upon how bad it's washed. But there used to be a trail up here that you could drive all the way up that I'm on right now, and let's see if I can make it. Some of these attempts, there's a camping site. Here's a camping site. There's a camping site. Here's another camping site. And of course, this is 13. I've stayed there before. And there's the bathroom. They built that bathroom, seems like, because I stayed up here in 1988. And during the time that I was up here in 88 and 89, there was no bathroom. Of course, after the Forest Service took it over versus TVA or the Corps of Engineers, whenever the Forest Service come in here, they started building stuff like that for the benefit of the people, towards making their accommodations a little bit better. And that's one of the things that really thrilled me in my endeavors up here, is that I come into the area in 88. I done my fasting and my praying up here by Sugar Bay off Legal Road 141, and there was order here, law and order here, but it was a different type of law and order than the law and order of what that I had to get familiar with whenever I come back here in 2007, whenever basically all hell busted out in my life, because it was under a different leadership or different authorityism towards me having to become acquainted with a brand new set of people, with brand new set of rules, brand new set of enforcements that they intended to enforce. that I wasn't even aware that this had taken place during the years in which I was gone. Whenever I first got run out of my original campsite there at the sacred site, I would walk this area, about a 5-mile area, almost every day, getting good exercise, staying in shape, praying and fasting, going through a complete total I guess you'd call it a cleansing, towards getting a lot of the toxins and stuff out of my body. And it was just one of the most glorious times of my entire life that I've ever come up here to spend with God and nature. Anyways, I wound up over here at this campsite, right over here to the left-hand side whenever they run me out. And the park rangers actually almost tried to run me over one day whenever I was on a bicycle towards coming back to this area. And it was just a very, very squirmish, unprofessional thing that was going on between Dwayne Camry and all of his crew that he had working with him at the time, towards wanting to basically make my life as miserable as possible, because they didn't like me being up here doing what I was doing. In other words, they were showing prejudice from the get-go, and them not appreciating the fact that I was up here spending so much time up here. Well, this was in 2007, and they had no idea that I had already been up here in 89, 88, and 89, 90, towards looking around, going through a ceremony, a 40-day, 40-night ceremony, fasting and praying for peace and a revival. They had no idea that I'd already spent so much time up here. They thought that I was a newcomer and that I just popped in. And of course, with all the bad clash of all the stuff that had went on before, with all the people being objectionable to what went on up here, whenever they was forcing people to leave illegitimately against their will, only added insult to misery pertaining to the adversity that had already been created up here before I ever even got up here. There was a whole lot of adversity, a whole lot of hurt feelings, and a whole lot of people that was really, really upset towards not necessarily what went on in the early 30s, and also towards not what necessarily went on whenever they flooded the Cumberland River on the other side, towards building that dam, towards people having to move inland. But whenever JFK drove over the area with an airplane and decided to turn it all into a total loss, and basically force these people out of their own homes that their parents and their great-grandparents and their great-grandparents lived here, that caused a big division. And I'm really surprised that the people didn't take up arms at that time against what the federal government had tried to do to them, because it destroyed so many lives. And we're not just talking about a few dozen, we're not just talking about a few hundred, we're talking about thousands of lives. If you get to looking at Land Between the Lakes up here, I don't forgot now how many cemeteries that they have, but those are the cemeteries that they've gotten marked, not counting the ones that they don't have marked, that people spent their lives up here towards surviving and thriving and growing and becoming that in which what they desired to be. Now right here is where the blacktop starts, just a small strip because of it flooding so bad. And this right here would be my road coming into this area off the legal road 141. That's legal road 140 right there. And then this is legal road 141. But what I did take notice whenever I come up here late yesterday evening, is that somebody has taken down all the road signs off of 141, like they didn't want nobody to identify where this road actually was, or where this road is. And I got to thinking about that, and I'm thinking, well, why would they have done that? Why would a group of people working for the Forestry Service had either taken those numbers off of those poles, or they themselves allowed for somebody to have done it and they haven't been replaced? Well, it's the same reason why that I run into all the resistance like I did whenever I was up here doing what I was doing in 2007 with a group of people that basically wasn't going to have me coming up here doing what I was doing. I realized that I had broken some violations towards staying too long at a campsite. I realized that maybe I cut down a limb that maybe I wasn't supposed to have, out of all these trillions and trillions of other limbs and leaves down here. I realized that maybe I may have messed up towards chewing a piece of gum and letting the paper wrapper fall onto the ground without me picking it up. In other words, whenever it comes to walking the line, I possibly made some errors of my own that should be squandered or questioned about. But I didn't deserve all of this. I didn't deserve a group of people that tried to make me out to be a monster. I didn't deserve towards a group of people that, as I was up here trying to help them, towards telling them about these massive weather events that was fixing to occur, as far as electrical disturbances and etc. I was trying to help them. I didn't deserve a group of people that claimed to either be working for a legitimate law enforcement agency or claim to be Christians themselves. Because if you get to looking at the state of Kentucky actually gleams more so in their belief in God and their belief in the Lord Jesus Christ, pertaining to their music and their history that they want to cling to so dearly up here in Kentucky. And it is a naturist spot. I think the state of Kentucky has more natural lakes and caves than any other state in the United States, pertaining to the natural beauty up here in Kentucky. And you can't blame them for wanting to preserve all of that. You can't blame them for wanting to cherish all that. And to be quite frank with you, I cherish it too. And so did others that was run off and told, this is no longer your home. You'll have to set up camp somewhere else. We're going to give you basically pennies on a dollar towards what your property is valued at. We're going to pat you on the back, kick you in the ass, and tell you good luck, and in reality not even wishing for any type of good luck. And we're going to run you off and take over your private dwelling. And that's exactly what a bunch of rude, crude, bullying type people done that was working for either the state or the federal government at the time, that come in here and dismantled these people's lives in the degree that what they've done. Sad in how that in the name of modern progress, in which, don't nobody disagree or disapprove towards what went on and how it went on in the early 30s, whenever they started building a dam and they started flooding the Tennessee River that turned it into the Kentucky Lake. I don't think nobody objected to that, because they knew that that was a good thing and that was part of modern day progression. Even if it caused a great deal of sacrifices towards these people's lives, that was the ones doing the sacrificing. I don't think nobody, after it was all said and done, had a problem in doing that for the betterment of the good of the people. And whenever the Cumberland River got flooded on the other side of Land Between the Lakes, I feel like that, at first there was a lot of mixed feelings, there was a lot of hurt feelings, but eventually people
people accepted it, and they lived with it, and they went on about their lives. It wasn't until what happened in the 60s that did not have to happen. These people's lives had already been disrupted on 2 different occasions. Okay? Massive occasions, because they literally had towns and stuff that got flooded, churches, restaurants, businesses, cemeteries had to be dug up. It disrupted their whole life in the first phases of the TVA advancement, as well as the second advancement whenever they built the second dam. It was whenever JFK flew over in the 60s and ordered for everybody to be dismantled completely away from LBL, off of their property that now they've already had to compromise on 2 different occasions towards. It was then whenever the animosity and the hurt and the heartbreak set in, because in their eyes as well as mine to this day, why did it have to occur? I realize that we think a great deal of our parks, and there's compromises that has to be made towards making sure that we have beautiful beauty like this to look at and enjoy, not only for our lives, but for our children and for our children's children. But they could have taken part of it and used it for a park, and the rest of it they could have delegated out to the people still living here. They didn't do that. They took it all. They didn't take part of it. They took it all. And it wasn't so much in what they done, but how they done it. Because they done it in a very, very forceful way, to the degree that there's literally been people that's died standing up for their cause towards protecting their own property, that basically was beat out of the existence of the very promises of our laws towards our very government that was supposed to protect. Not to break, but to protect. Now I'm up here where I spent so much endless time. That was just, like I said, one of the most exhilarating, wonderfulest times of my life that I spent up here in fasting and praying and getting close to God, walking these trails, just like the trail I just got through showing you that I was on, coming back from Sugar Bay. And just basically trying to do my own personal thing as far as a church retreat, all in the name of God, and all in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, and all in the name of peace and love and utopia that I thought everybody loved. I thought everybody wanted. But just like those numbers on this road that has been taken down illegitimately by somebody, what you're looking at right there pertaining to that legal road right there that used to be considered a legal road. I call it a legal road. It may be, in their terminology, it wasn't a legal road, but at one time there was a road that went all the way around where they got that sign at now, that basically that gate. There was a road that went all the way around and went all the way up where I was fasting and praying and spending so much time in the wilderness. And then that road come back down on the back side of the mountain, where people lived at one time, and where there was, to this day, cemeteries up there and etc., where people made their lives. These was good, honest people. These was people that was already struggling
in their survival towards horse and buggy back in the late 1800s and the early 1900s. These was people that had love for their families, love for their country, and love for who they was and what they was until they got forced out. Basically, it was an invasion by their own government that told them all to pack up and go. Like I said, they gave them pennies on a dollar for the property. Some of the property, actually most of the property, was not was not properly, what word am I trying to use here? It wasn't surveyed properly, and a lot of these people that thought that they only had a 10-acre lot probably had more like a 15 or 20-acre lot because of the rolling hills and the hollers. And at that time, they didn't have GPS to be able to accurately measure it, and they just got out there and stepped it off. And some of these people had a great deal more property than what the government was saying that they actually had. Well, they've done the same thing to the Spanish people out towards New Mexico and Texas and other places where they went in and basically inundated their land, energy, towards taking over their property. This was where God led me to go. The only thing that I can say, the reason why God led me to come here, was because of all the pain and the suffering that had occurred up here in this area. Why did God send me on this particular mountainside? I think it was for the same reason that this area was looked upon as maybe being a potential promising site for a great deal of people that never got to fulfill that dream. Besides that, where I was actually at, where the sacred site is, it was one of the highest areas up here, to the point that you could see a great deal of the water either to the north or the south of the Tennessee-Kentucky Lake side. I couldn't tell you the nights whenever there wasn't a light one, and I would basically set up and watch the boats, the carriers coming down the river, and I'd sit and watch their lights until they finally flickered and went off. This was where the wolf, tried to end that in which what I was trying to do in 1989. That was not successful. I'm talking about a literal wolf that come up onto my campsite. And this was also where the wolves in sheep's clothing come at me in the human form towards wanting to stop what I was doing, what God had called me to do. In 2007, towards a reoccurrence of the re-sanctification of the sword symbolizing peace on earth, that obviously they didn't want to happen during that time neither. And whenever I say they, who are you talking about they? I'm talking about the evil demonic spirits that was coming out of the woodwork in every form and fashion that you could think of, that was trying to stop the progression of me doing what I was doing. Now, I told you about some people being up here late yesterday evening, last night, whenever I come in. That's part of their tent right there. One area. And then if you'll look on up there, there's another tent. And like I said, I don't know if they're up here turkey hunting, deer hunting, bird watching, may just be up here camping, may be exercising. I mean, they have groups that comes up here, church groups and stuff that comes up here, that uses this for a fortress in conditioning their people. You got Fort Campbell that joins the southern tip of LBL on the Tennessee side. I guess part on the Kentucky side too. But this is a big woods. You're talking about a piece of property that's like, what, 11, 12, 15 miles wide, that goes up and down about 70 miles. Part of it is in northern Tennessee, part of it is in southern Kentucky. And this is also an area that was considered prime, because some of the views on the side of the rivers on either side would be fitting for a king, and people would be willing to pay $250,000 to $1 million a lot just to be able to come up here and live and call this home, because it's that pleasurable, that peaceful. I just want you to listen for a second. The peacefulness of this. I'm going to get out of my car. I want to get out real quick while I'm talking. Towards what drawed me to this particular area in 1989, whenever I come up here to spend not hours, not days, not weeks, but months in being next to nature. Please listen. The forest has its own characteristics at different times, in different periods. It's almost like a riverboat captain that goes up and down the Mississippi River. He actually never goes up or down the same river twice, because the river is constantly in motion. The river is constantly changing. The river that was this way this time may not be that way the next time. And that's the pleasures of nature, in understanding the characteristics of each and every tree has its own personality of who it is, what it is. And if those trees could talk, there isn't no telling what that they would have to say in regards towards the last 100 years that this particular body of area has went through. Some of it would be so joyful it would make tears come up into your eyes, while other times would be so sorrowful that it would make tears come up into your eyes. But it doesn't matter if you come up here in the early spring, when all the foliage is coming to life and going up into the trunks, or you come in the fall to where all the life is going down into the root system. It's still life. It still speaks volumes of what it is and who it is. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm very, very grateful that we have each and every tree, each and every forest, each and every park, each and everything that we have here today in our American achievements. Here comes somebody. I think it was that person that was hunting a while ago. I have 100% gratitude towards each and everything that we have ever had in America, beginning at its fullest array. Let me pull up here real quick, get out of this guy's way. Wouldn't have thought nobody would come down this road. Usually, don't nobody come down about twice a day or something. Over here. Hey, buddy. Doing all right? You doing okay? You from around here? You care if I talk to you a second?
Yeah, I was actually getting ready to pull up over here and get my stuff and head out. I gotta go to work.
Oh, well, okay. I was going to ask you, are there any hunters up here yet?
Yeah.
Are they turkey hunters or deer hunters?
Deer.
Are they hunting deer bow and arrow time?
Yeah.
I see. Man, I have spent so much time right here in this area.
Yeah.
I ain't talking about days or weeks. I'm talking about months. I'm talking about years.
Yeah.
Living up here in the forest and just being with nature.
Yeah.
There's nothing anything like it, is it?
No, sir.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's something you can't get in the bottom of a Cracker Jack box. You know what I'm saying? You can't buy something like this.
No, you can't.
So many people had great losses in sacrificing for the things that we have today pertaining to electricity. I don't know if you know the history about it up here, but there was a lot of suffering and a lot of pain that went on up here, where the people got run out. Well, you just up here kind of hiking and enjoying?
No, I went deer hunting this morning. I had somebody walk in on me a few minutes ago.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, they said that today was his first day here and he was doing some scouting.
Yeah.
He just happened to, I know where he comes from. He seen the same sign that I seen yesterday.
So that basically just ruined your chances, though, today towards just as well as pick up stakes and call it a day and hope for a better day tomorrow. Yeah. When somebody like that walks into your area, they disturb everything around there, though, as far as the secrecy of it being natural.
No, I mean it's all public land. I ain't mad at him.
Yeah, I know.
Like, dude, I come up the same trail yesterday. I was like, I walked around the same ridge. He was talking about where he's coming from, and I was like, man, ain't no big deal. I was like, I come in here yesterday.
I actually built an altar up there, a sacred site up there. If you go right up there where they closed up that road, because whenever I was up here in 2007, they didn't have all that gate and all that stuff up there. And since then, once they realized that I had, reformigated or refound that road, and I was actually using it for a road, that's whenever they put a gate up and wasn't no longer allowing for people to have access. But that road actually goes all the way up and around on top of that hill, and it goes back down the hill. On the other side, there's a bunch of unmarked tombstones down in there. Of course, if you get to walking around, there ain't no telling what you're liable to find out here.
Yeah. No.
But to me, there's nothing like it. And to think that I had the opportunity of coming up here twice and staying with them. In total, I've stayed up here over a year and living in the woods like Jeremiah Johnson on just very, very limited supplies. So, yeah, it means a lot to me to come up here. Very, very peaceful, very tranquil. Well, better luck next time, right, on your hunt?
Yes, sir.
Take care of yourself. So he was one of the ones that was over here that I pulled into and realized that there was people residing in this area. See, you can reside up here for 21 days. 21 days living primitive. You can get a primitive pass and come anywhere on land between the lakes and live, set up camp and live just like if it was your own personal home for 21 days. But after that 21 days, you're expected to leave, and you got to go like at least a mile away, and you got to stay gone like 7 days before you can come back to that original site, because they don't want somebody up here permanently residing. You can't come up here and basically live, even though there are people, a lot of your retirees, people that's unfortunate that don't have their property and stuff. A lot of them come up here in RVs, little RVs, generators and stuff on them.
and they'll move from destination to destination, destination, and they'll basically travel around that way and do it all legally. Pick up all their stuff. They don't leave a lot of trash. Don't bother nobody. Just up here living their lives and living with nature. We got a lot of people that live that way in this area because of the circumstances that surrounded their lives. I've never actually hunted up here. I haven't bow hunted up here. I haven't gun hunted up here. I've never went turkey hunting up here. I'm pretty sure they probably still do things like they used to do towards being picked. Every year you gotta put your name in the hat towards wanting to come hunting in this Land Between the Lakes natural area, and they pick your name, and then after they pick your name, if I'm not mistaken, they're the ones that actually delegate in what area that you're permitted to hunt in. If I'm not mistaken, that's the way it used to be. I don't know if it's still that way or not today. But they try to control it towards how many people come in here with guns or bow and arrows. They try to control it towards their wildlife out here, towards people just don't come out here and just massacre it to the point that they take everything out here. They want to leave something for the next year or the next generations to come, which that's a good thing. I think how that they do all that is a very, very wise and good thing, and how that they manage this particular forest out here. All that's good. I think part of the problem was that they didn't know what I was up to whenever I was up here, because my dad had already contacted them in the year 2007 that I was on my way up here as a suicide by cop deal, and for them to stop me at all costs because my father had such an evil demonic spirit within him. He didn't want me to succeed with the Windmill Ministries neither. He was totally against the Windmill Ministries missions, even up to the very last day that he died. As far as I know, he never gave in towards either believing in my calling or wanting to support my calling. Never did. My son turned against me too as well. My two older brothers turned against me too as well. And of course the Bible says that that a prophet is without honor among his own people and in his own home. And because they couldn't find favor in their heart to forgive me of some of the things that I personally have made mistakes in, they just couldn't see that how somebody like their brother or their son or their cousin or their nephew would be called of a heavenly Father to go out and go on these assignments towards doing the things that I was doing. And they had no idea of the predictions that I had made then is now fluently coming true today, pertaining to the mighty Mississippi starting to run dry, affecting other major other water reservoirs, such as the Colorado River, where the Hoover Dam is, and other types of water-related reservoirs. They had no idea that the predictions that I was making then are now starting to manifest themselves today. And this was way before Al Gore ever threw his hat in the ring in 2000, whenever he was running for the presidency. And it was way before that anybody took a lot of seriousness in the science with global warming atmospheric conditions. This was way before any of that was either known or popular to be known. You see that walk bridge right there? I couldn't tell you the amount of times that I've sat on there and brought a Bible and read the Bible and prayed and just basically got with God and myself, and I figured out who I was. No disturbances, no commotions, no distractions, just you and God and nature.
I've been up here whenever it was raining and the river, the very stream, the stream bed that you're looking at right there was so full of water that it was almost knocking that bridge completely off its foundation. I've been up here to the degree that there was no way that you could have traveled up here in a regular car. You would have had to have had a four-wheel drive truck just to have gotten up here safely and got out of here. And even then, you took a chance on either getting stuck or something else bothering, something else happening. Matter of fact, this gully right here, it was about half full, and I thought that this same car that I'm in right now, I thought that I could make it through it. I got almost to the other side, and I wallered out. In other words, I got stalled. And needless to say, that cost me about $175 towards calling up a wrecker service, come out here with a rollback and hooked onto me and pulled me out just out of that one little area right there. It cost me about $175 to unstick my automobile that was stuck there because I was stuck. My telephone service wouldn't work right here where I'm at right here because it's in a shadowed area. So I had to walk all the way back up here to the legal road 140, which is give or take from where that riverbed right there is, probably about a half a mile. But I had to walk all the way up here before I could get any services to be able to call anybody. I had to keep trying my phone, kept trying my phone. Wasn't working. Well, I'd try again. Go around this corner, I'd try again. Go around this other corner, I'd try again. I kept on until I finally got services and contacted the wrecker people. Matter of fact, I just found their letter the other day. I think it was $172, if I'm not mistaken, is what it costed me towards having them come down here and get me out of this predicament that I was in. And just so happens I had roadside service on my insurance, and I turned it in on my insurance, and my insurance paid for the wrecker, the rollback coming out here and taking care of my problem that I was stuck in. I turned it into the insurance, and the insurance paid for it, which I thought was a good thing that the insurance would do. I don't think it's very much. It's something like $4 or $5 a month that they tag on to your bill pertaining to having roadside service attendance if something ever occurs, which I think is very, very well spent. You know, even if I pay $4 or $5 a month for the rest of my life and I never have to use it again, as far as I'm concerned, that investment has already done paid for itself, even if I don't ever have to call on it again towards paying for the services. So to me, getting that extra little bit of insurance meant a great deal towards getting me out of this predicament that I was in. Most of your law enforcement people love this atmosphere, men and women both. It gives them an opportunity to do like I'm talking about, get out in the nature, be with themselves, be with God. No disturbances, no man-made disturbances. It's all, you know, prestige, premier property out here. Most of them like to come out here because it's good exercise. Just like going to the gym. You're out here walking up and down a lot of these slopes, having to go in and out of a lot of these woods that sometimes is so thick and entangled. It almost takes a bulldozer to get through some of that stuff. But most of your outdoors people love it. Outdoors, your law enforcement people love it out in places like this because it gives them an opportunity to revent, and it gives them an opportunity to rediscover themselves towards who they are and what they are. In which I would strongly suggest for anybody to be more natural than unnatural
pertaining to our great nation and our great planet that we live on. Now I'm back on Legal Road 140, going back out to the main corridor that's called the Trace. And once I get out to the Trace, I can either turn right and go back like going to Murray, Kentucky, where Golden Pond is and where the law enforcement headquarters is, where I had so much trouble up here during the time that I was up here with Dwayne Camry and the LBL bunch. I think they got a science research lab up there. I know they got a thing up there where you can look star research, where you can observatory thing where you can look at the stars and stuff. It ain't no big one, but it's a pretty good size one to where you can come up here. Matter of fact, in let me think, 2015 I think it was, whenever there was a major eclipse, I wanted to be up here during that time whenever the eclipse took place, because it was a very, very historical, unusual event. Now I do want to say this same road that I'm on right now, I walked it, okay, day after day after day that I'm on right now. No, I didn't walk it barefooted, but the next thing to it, and the area where I just showed you at, where the main entrance was going up into the sacred site, but I would walk a whole distance around this whole mountain almost every day just for exercise. Whenever I come up here, the first time towards the sword being re-sanctified in 2007, I had some very, very intense, harsh times that I was having to deal with pertaining to law enforcement, regardless whether it was law enforcement here in LBL or law enforcement within the surrounding areas, especially up towards Paducah, Kentucky, whenever they tried to make me out to be a villain, like I was going to blow up their Kentucky Dam, and the whole time I was trying to help them by telling them about these unusual weather events that was going to cause electrical disturbances. But there was one time I come up here, I believe it was in the 2008, the year after that, or maybe 2009. It was early in the spring, and I'd done already buried the sword box in LBL, and I had to come back and find the sword box. I couldn't find the sword box, so I had to go borrow a metal detector, which was very, very dangerous because they do not allow for metal detectors in this area. They don't. Relic hunting in this area is illegal. They don't want people up here digging and scratching around and stuff and finding stuff for relics to be able to make money off of, or to be able to gleam and glory off of, because they find it to be unappropriate. In which I think that's a good thing too as well. But I had to go get this money detector because I knew that sword was in that sword box that I'd kept here all fall and all winter, and now it's in the spring, okay? And at the time I was working for an outfit in Alabama, down by Huntsville, Alabama, and I couldn't find the sword box. So I went and got a money detector thing, a metal detector thing, and I found it. So while I was up here finishing off my ceremony, this was in 2008, 2009, somewhere around in there, I was walking this road, and it had gotten pretty warm that spring. Been raining, pretty heavy winter. And for some reason, and I know a lot of people ain't gonna believe this, but for some reason, every snake, I guess within a football field of this road, wound up on this road. And it was a phenomenon unlike any that I had ever seen before, on just a little dirt road that had already been graveled. And I guess what it was, the sun was coming out in the spring, and the earth was still very, very cold, but the gravel was very, very warm because, you know, naturally you see up there, the sun can get to it and can hit it. So the road had warmed up probably 15 to 20, maybe 30 degrees warmer than what it was out here in the natural habitat. Well, this phenomenon that I come upon was unlike anything that I'd ever seen, because I'm not just talking about one snake or two snakes or even a dozen snakes. I'm talking about dozens and dozens of snakes. I don't know what kind of reptiles that there was. There was different types of snakes, but I know that they was coming out here on this gravel to enjoy the warmth, because that's what they was requiring at that time. And I kind of had to halfway walk. I had to be very, very cautious in where I walked and where I went, because even though they was slow moving at the time, because of it being still basically getting over the winter type atmosphere, those things would have beaten you. They was still active. I mean, they was very active. They wasn't as active as what they would have been in the dead summertime. But I literally was having to walk around snakes on this road. And it happened to me 2 or 3 times while I was up here in the spring, because, like I said, those reptilians, the reptiles, they strive towards warmth. And it was just at the right time of the year, whenever they was coming out of their nest, coming out of their hibernation, and man, did they ever find pleasure of getting out here on this warm gravel and enjoying themselves. But it was a phenomenon to me, because I had never seen anything like that before. Literally to the point that I was having to walk around snakes, making sure that I didn't get bitten. And they just lay there. They wouldn't try. They were just sunning, you know. They was taking in that heat, taking in that life, that warmth. I'm gonna go up here, right up here to the trace where I'm at right here, and then I'm gonna end this video to let you know that this is my ending point on the trace. I'm gonna turn left. Like I told you a while ago, I could either turn right and go to the observation thing, or I could turn left, in which that's the way I'm going to go. I'm going to turn left. That's right. That's left. That's south, going back to Dover, Tennessee. This is left, which is north, going back to Grand Rivers, Kentucky. Now you see that road right there in front? There's so many different roads that you can take. The roads on this side of the trace is going to lead you to the Tennessee-Kentucky lake or river on this side. And if you go on that side, it leads you to the other side of the Cumberland River. The way I understand it, the Cumberland River is still being operated and run by the Corps of Engineers. The Corps of Engineers was what originally was running this side of the Tennessee-Kentucky lakeside up until around the year 2000. After 2000 is whenever the National Forestry Services took this side, which would be the south side of the trace, took it completely over. Now, the Forest Service still operates this other side going into the Cumberland River, but from the Cumberland River's edge, water's edge, on over to the other side, the way I understand it, the Corps of Engineers are the ones that's fully in charge of all that. To where over here, you got the National Park Service that's interconnected with the TVA service. Over there, on the other side of the Cumberland River, it's the Corps of Engineers and the TVA department that runs all that over there. So, you know, it's give or take. You just don't really know towards what agency you're going to have to deal with. I see where somebody had to go around some parts on a car. Looked like where somebody hit a deer last night, and the parts hadn't been removed from the highway yet. Pretty obvious out here. You're driving around, and at nighttime, you got all these different wildlife varmints that want to cross to get from one area to the other. That can be a road hazard. Now, in 2005, whenever the Lord really shook my life up, and I made a conscious decision towards turning my heart and life back over to God, enlightenance of that in which what He had originally called me into, going all the way back into 1989 and 88, different periods of times of my life. 1989, whenever I went up here on a 3-day church retreat for a weekend while I was living on Juneau Bargington Road in Lexington, Tennessee, I witnessed another phenomenon that whenever I was witnessing it, I knew that it was another phenomenon that was very, very unusual. And what that phenomenon was, I was actually coming back from the Grand Riverside, going back into where we just come from, and I seen spools of deer or herds of deer on both sides of the road that was by the groves. Hundreds of deer, buck, doe, little deer, big deer, whatever kind of deer. They would come to the road's edge, and it was almost like that they was being herded into this trace road that I was traveling down, so that they could greet me in me coming back here to this particular area. And I know whenever I say that, people's going to say, "Oh, that's this guy's imagination running wild." No, this was at night. There wasn't no sun warming up the asphalt. These was literally live deer, buck as well as does. And for some reason, they had come out on the right side, as many on the left side as the right side, and they was just standing there watching me. And I just knew that wasn't none of them going to pull out in front of me. And I continued on doing 45, 50 miles an hour. Now, fixing to go into Lyon County. Now I'm in Lyon County here. But it was as if that they was welcoming me back to this particular area to re-event the 1989 original event that now was being reformigated or brought back to life in 2005. It was 2005 that I started back on this adventure or this quest that I'm on today, that actually began in 1989. It went from 89 to, I guess the last time I was up here before 2005, the last time that I was here would have been somewhere around, I'm going to say 97, while I was living in Milan, Tennessee. Whenever I stood back up for the cross, and I started issuing out a lot of material. That was basically the last time that I had made any type of advancements towards coming back to the sacred site at Sugar Bay, Land Between the Lakes. So I went from 97 to 2005, basically 8 years, that, yeah, I come to this area and drove around and went to Hillman's Ferry and went camping and done other things around in this area. But as far as me actually going to the site and praying and being familiarized with the nature resources around me, there was a span that I just basically walked away from it. And one of the reasons why was because I seen where I wasn't getting nowhere pertaining to the church world down in Tennessee and Kentucky, in the local surrounding, let's say, 15 counties. I wasn't getting nobody to support me. I wouldn't, and if anything, instead of getting support, I was actually still being ridiculed towards being run out of churches and told, "Don't come back here. You're welcome, but your ideology is not welcome." It's kind of like what was told to me yesterday by Miss Green, Shirley Green, that was married to Ronald Green. Basically, she told me the same thing. "Juby, we don't believe in what you believe in. We don't support it. We don't stand with it. We don't have nothing in common. And if you don't mind, leave." She told me just leave. She said, if I see you out here at Walmart somewhere, I'll probably say hi to you. I'll put on my fake face. But in reality, we don't want you up here. We don't want you in our lives, even though at one time you was in our lives. So whenever you're dealing with this type of resistances, whenever you're dealing with this type of adversity, whenever you're dealing with all these hate-mongering people that hate you for whatever reason, no wonder our country has gone sour. No wonder our lakes and our rivers is running dry. No wonder the Mississippi River has gotten lower than what it's ever been for the past, I guess, 100 years. No wonder we're seeing fires break out everywhere and all these radical weather forces of nature that's doing what they're doing. No wonder we're seeing all the crime on our streets to the point that Tyson is threatening towards leaving Chicago if they can't take control of their crime. No wonder they had a major ball field that gave up their position in Chicago that said, you know what, it ain't worth us endangering our spectators and our supporters up here, and we're going to take our team somewhere else. No wonder we're $30 trillion in debt. No wonder we went to war with Afghanistan during Desert Storm and Desert Shield, not Afghanistan, but Iraq War, went to war and basically didn't get nothing accomplished during the time that we was over there because there was no true bombs of mass destruction. No wonder we went to war after 9/11 with Afghanistan and basically threw good measure to bad pertaining to not achieving what we set out to achieve, even though we spent over $2 trillion and sacrificed all kinds of lives and wound up spending over 20 years, and 11 days later the very enemy that we was opposed to took the very same property back over again. Bad luck has befallen the American people for the past 30 some odd years, and it's time for the American people to know what caused this, what happened here, how come these people was jinxed, how come these people, everything that they done basically blowed up in their faces. I'm going to tell you why. Because they didn't pursue the right way of God. They didn't respect, they didn't honor that in which what the Lord had called me into, and because of it, it has caused total chaos, not only here in America, but total chaos basically throughout the world. And there's going to be lots of people, beginning with the Reagan and the Bush administration government, with Secret Service and the people in Northwest Tennessee that knew a part of all this, that could have supported this, pertaining to a ministry that supported peace, but chose not to. There's going to be accountability issues that's going to come up in so many people's lives in the Northwest Tennessee area that it ain't even going to be funny towards how come how are they going to explain themselves pertaining to either their actions or their unintended actions towards what that they either done or did not do that they know that they should have done, going all the way back to the beginning phases of the Windmill Ministries missions development. And I continue to keep telling people that, and it keeps going through one ear and out the other. And in the meantime, I keep seeing horrible, bad things, regardless whether it's the war over in Ukraine or other events happening worldwide as well as locally here in the United States. I keep telling them that, and I guess it keeps being avoided and ignored, just like other prophets of God was avoided. They was ignored. Noah, he was ignored. Moses, for a great deal of time, he was ignored until finally God made a convincing statement with the Pharaohs, with the Egyptians, to the point that he was no longer ignored. And I guess that's where we're at today pertaining to the Windmill Ministries. I guess I'm going to have to continue to keep hammering on this rock. And every time I hit on this rock, I guarantee you, it ain't me the one doing the hitting. It's God doing the hitting. And every time he hits it, he's going to fracture a certain part of that boulder. And he's going to keep hitting that boulder and keep hitting that boulder till eventually that boulder is going to turn into nothing but a rock. Because I know what I know, that the calling of God that was placed up into my life was not my imagination. It was not something that I was a figment of my imagination towards me having some sort of a delirious delusion or etc. I know that this was of God that called me into this. I know it was of God that saved my life in 1983. I know it was of God whenever I met the physical Luciferian Lucifer pertaining to the Saudi Arabians. I know it was of God that the angels of God come down from heaven and placed a crown of thorns on top of my head. And if people don't want to support me, that's fine. You know, because I've been accused so many times of so many different things. And one of those things was, well, you're trying to force this down our throat. You're trying to force this down our throat. Okay, I'll quit coming knocking on your door. I'll quit going to your house. You tell me that I'm not welcome there, I'll quit coming there. But in the meantime, you open up your eyes and you realize that you hold a great deal of responsibility towards the actions that's being promoted right now, not only here in America, but throughout the world, towards evil basically exceeding and taking over this planet. Because if you're not willing to take your responsibilities and accountability issues today while you're living upon this planet, I guarantee you, in the lifetime to come, whenever you stand in front of the great white throne judgment, you will give an account for that in which what you either done or did not do that you know that you should have done. And so will I. Just like my grandmother used to always say, every pail has to set on its own bottom. In other words, every person that has ever come into the existence of being a human being will give an account for the works that they have done, either the works of good or the works of bad, in that final day of judgment. Thanks again for listening. Once more, I'm going down this one road, going back towards the Cumberland Riverside. I'm not as familiar over here on this side of the LBL trace. And I guess the reason why is because, let me see, it looks like that's Legal Road 111 that I'm on here. And I guess the reason why that wasn't attracted or influenced towards coming over here to this particular area. And once more, you can look it up online pertaining to the grave sites that's here. Looks like they've got a seating arrangement right there where they have attendances towards people coming and listening to the pastor. I'm sure they have certain times that they come in here, either in the spring or in the fall. Somebody has to come in here and keep all this stuff mowed. Somebody has to come in here and keep all these flowers arranged. Somebody has to come in here and keep this stuff tamed down, because if they didn't, what you're looking at right here pertaining to this cemetery, it just grow up in trees, grow up in weeds. Church was built in 1895. See, I didn't know that this even existed right here. Land was donated by Mr. Smith. Got it all recorded. These people that lived here are just an ounce in the bucket pertaining to the thousands of lives that settled in this area that tried to make this their home. This is what attracted me to this particular area. Gary Hawkins kept asking me, well, how come you chose to come up here? How come you chose to come up here? And I kept telling him, Mr. Hawkins, God sent me up here. Mr. Hawkins, God has directed me to come up here. Well, now throughout the years, I can tell you why. And the reason why is because of what you're looking at right now, of the pre-existing people that lived here, that existed here, that built their lives and their homes here, that their ancestors and their children or their children's children was run out and told, you don't live here no more. This is no longer your home. And put up with it and shut up and don't say a word about it. And I feel like that was part of the reason why that I was attacked by these law enforcement agencies up here, because there was so much grief, so much suffering, so much backbiting pertaining to the ridiculation, that whenever I come up here, they thought that I was a part of these people in general that was up here raising 19 kinds of you know what, because I was displeased about maybe my grandfather or my grandmother or my great-grandmother or great-grandfather being run off of this particular territory. And I'm sure I probably do have some kin up here, as big and as strong as what we was in the Jackson tree, pertaining to spreading out the way that we was spreading out in the late 1800s and the early 1900s. I'm pretty sure that there was probably a cousin, an aunt, a nephew, a niece, a cousin, somebody that probably initiated their lives up this way during the time of settling this area. This was basically either before or during the time of the invention of the automobile. But it is so beautiful up here this time of year of the fall, and I'm glad that I got an opportunity of coming back here before the fall colors started fading completely. They're not as lavish this year as what they usually are, and I think the reason why of that, the way the meteorologists and WPST talk, because of the drought, because of the dirt and the ground being so diminished of good adequate moisture this year, it's had a profound effect upon to the forestry that makes a lot of these trees suffer. I mean, suffer immensely. And it ain't like that they haven't already went through a great deal of suffering. But whenever you have a drought like this at the fall of the year, your colors isn't as lavish for some reason, because the moisture content in the trunk and in the root isn't adequate to the point of where it should be, versus a year that didn't have such of a drought, if that makes any sense to you. These little secondary, third-party gravel roads that was put here probably primarily years and years ago towards usually wood jactors, people coming out here and cutting down trees and cutting down the forestry for wood and stuff, was placed here. And plus they're probably put here because of people actually living here. Now this is another rock bed right here, and if I'm not mistaken, this same bedrock right here goes over into the Wrangler campground area that's up the road about 7 or 8, 10 miles. Now they've done come in here and farmed. You can see where they farmed this. Let's pull in here real quick. And that's another reason why I wanted to come up here with my car, is because I know that it was so dry that I didn't have to worry about driving my truck up here and getting stuck. But they farm this stuff out. I don't know who gets paid to do this stuff. Looks like they may have had a problem there with the tire, and they just replaced the rim and the tire together and just left that to come back for it later. But they get in here and they cut these beams, and a lot of times they don't cut all the beams. They leave a certain portion of them for the wildlife. Now I don't know what they've done this year pertaining to that, but it's pretty obvious that whenever they get in here and cut this stuff, man, do they ever cut it. I mean, they cut it right down to the nib, within an inch or two of the ground. And it's just absolutely amazing in how much property was taken over out here by the government. And no wonder these people was upset about all that stuff. But I didn't have nothing to do with formigating any type of party and all this. I think even to this day, they still have meetings, open meetings pertaining to what had happened to their ancestry. And I think what they're waiting for, or hoping for, they're waiting that this will die out, that all these different generations will give up this quest that they're on
towards arguing about how that their ancestors and their fathers and mothers and their grandmothers was basically done wrong. The government is hoping that all that stuff would die out. That way, probably long about I don't know, long about 2050, maybe 2060, the government will basically have full reins towards doing whatever that they want to do to this. And if they wanted to turn it back into a public piece of ground, towards selling those lots that I'm talking about for $250,000 or $500,000, just a bare lot, a 4 or 5 acre lot, that they can do so, and it'd basically turn into their cash cow here in this particular neck of the woods. I ain't gonna go on over to the Cumberland Riverside, or I say I'm not. It does look like there's a mountain right there, or a mountain ridge, but that doesn't mean that the Cumberland River is going to be on the other side or this side. I do want to point something else out that I'm seeing over here. I'm glad now that I drove on down here. I don't know who gets paid. I don't know who gets paid to do this. I don't know who gets the proceeds of where the money goes after they do this, just like growing these crops. I'm sure there must be some profit margin in it somewhere, or else they wouldn't be doing it towards putting in beans and corn and etc. But if you go over here, I just now noticed this, and then I'll be through with this little recording here. They have extensively come in here at this particular area and went to cut down timber, clearing timber. Now, I don't know if they got plans in the future towards possibly going to do something else with this, or maybe they're just clearing the timber because of getting some more proceeds pertaining to their profit margin. I don't know where all that stands and where all that's heading. But my question is, where does the proceeds go? You know, whenever they go in here and they cut down this timber, whatever the profit range is, which I'm sure there must be some sort of a profit range. You're going to come in here and clear the timber like they have right up here. Where does all the profit go? Who is gaining off of the territory now that the Forest Service has taken over pertaining to the United States government? You know, what are they doing up here? Why are they basically strip mining this ground right up here that's going to basically turn it into nothing but a washout if they don't watch? Because it's pretty obvious they ain't leaving a whole lot of trees. Very few trees are they leaving, so they're not picking and choosing towards allowing for this particular area to refurbish itself. But my question is, where is the proceeds going? Who does gain the profit off of this? I'm sure it's the government some way or another. That, like I said, this particular ground over here used to belong to somebody at one time. There's a road back over there that goes around this hill. But why have they chosen to come in here and do what they're doing on this particular mountainside? Well, this isn't the only mountainside that they do stuff like this on. I have been up here, and like I said, it's a big area. I've been up here to where they've closed down roads that used to be legal roads that people could drive down, that now they can't drive down. I've been up here and I've seen other forestries that's been cleared off like this. I've been up here and I've seen them basically strip mine these areas and not hardly leave nothing left, wondering, why did they do this? Why didn't they leave different trees here to where it could refurbish itself in being a prestige forest one day on down the road, 25, 30, 40, 50 years from now? Who is involved in this? Are they making this publicly known because of the way that they have squandered
this property away from people? Some questions that these people basically has an open license to this day, kind of like the way that the Congress done TVA in the 1920s and said, here, y'all do whatever you want to do in whatever format that you want to do it, and get back with us later and let us know how things turned out. You know, there has to be accountability in no matter what people does or how they do it, pertaining to people being hurt and ruined and taken advantage of. There has to be some form of accountability, and that's what these people are scared of up here in Kentucky. And because I come up here and was so noticeable, even though I wasn't doing it to bring attention to myself, they got worried about me being up here. They got worried about me being up here to the extent that they started making up lies about me and started telling all kinds of stuff about me, about that I was this way, or I was that way, or I was doing this, or I was doing that. Anything to diminish my character and try to get the general public of looking down on me towards me being up here doing what I was doing for the Lord Jesus Christ, towards praying for peace and utopia. That's what I run into. So I'm glad that God has given me the opportunity. There's that piece of machinery right up there. I'm glad that God has given me this opportunity of coming once more down these pleasant, beautiful roads, looking at these trees, forestry, changing colors, going into a completely different stage, characterizing itself in speaking out, each tree with its own language, and hoping that somebody like me thinks enough of it to drive down here and be its mouthpiece, speaking on its behalf towards telling the story about what occurred, when it occurred, why it occurred, where it occurred, etc., etc., etc. My son, he got a camper this year, done some minor repair on it, and he come up to Hillman's Ferry and stayed, I think, for 2 or 3 nights. And his response was, Dad, I don't know what you see in all this, but it was a whole lot of work and a whole lot of energy that I devoted in doing something that, as far as I'm concerned, I would have had a more pleasurable time in renting out a hotel somewhere and staying in air conditioning. Well, that's fine if that's what you see, and that's your analogy of nature, and you have been led in believing that air conditioning in a hotel is better than we're right here at the water's edge. So I'm going to be continually recording right here. I've seen the water right back over there. I don't know if you can see it or not with this camera, but I can see it with the naked eye. I can see the water's edge right there. But look at these roads. Look at these colors. Look at the leaves. The people in the city, they don't get to see this stuff. People in a commercialized area, they don't get to see nature, raccoons and squirrels, rabbits. See nature for what it is. There's a road right here. I don't know if it goes down. I don't know if it's doable or not. At least it's not wet. Rains hadn't set in yet. There's somebody right there, probably looking around. But if the sun was shining today, okay, this whole woods, this whole forest would gleam, and that in and of itself would be a completely different voice or a completely different atmosphere that it would be radiating out. Just drive down here to the water's edge. Once more, this will be the Cumberland River. So I have made it from side to side here. Looks like a turnaround right there. Somewhat of a turnaround. Like a burning pile right there. But over here, yeah, looks like they even have somewhat of a little beach area or a boat ramp right here. I don't know if you can get down there with a boat or not. I guarantee you the people that are living up here and live up here all their lives, a lot of them know the back of these roads just like the back of their hands, and they know the areas to come to and the areas where they can launch a boat and the areas that they can't launch a boat. Like right over there in that particular area right over there, that looks like a boat launching area. Man, does it ever smell fishy around here. I'm gonna cut my vehicle off. What this is just a channel leading off into the main channel of the Cumberland River. And I'm sure all this right here that you're looking at that's bare, it is supposed to be underwater too. But because the water table has dropped the way that it has, now you see dirt instead of water. But right back over there will be your main channel going off into the Cumberland River. That means once you cross over that body of water and you get to the opposite side where you see trees, that's private ground over there. That's all private ground, and you can drive up through there and you can run into campsite after campsite after campsite, which you'll do the same over here too as well. Most of it is primitive over here, but over there it'll be privatized towards having electricity and water and modern day conveniences. Some of the little campsites won't be but maybe 25, 30. Some of them will be 130. But you can go over there towards, I guess that'd be Trigg County and Lyon County, going towards Cadiz, Kentucky, and go up and down on the other side of the Cumberland River over there and see all kinds of RVs and all kinds of parks, retirees, people that want to get out here where there's peace and utopia and towards enjoying the rest of their remaining lives, towards living out their golden years. I'm going to be quiet for a minute and just let you listen, and I'm going to move the camera very slowly. I miss this so badly, towards being able to come out here in the nature and get away from all the stresses, all the hustle bustle, all the whistles and the bells and the sirens, all the squabbling and the yelling and the screaming and haggling. You don't find none of that out here. Out here you find calmness, tranquility, peace, nature, love. That's what these people had to sacrifice and give up. That's what those trees was crying out to a while ago by saying, look at us, look at us, look at us. We're still here. And we're glad that you're here to be able to tell our remarkable story in land between the lakes in northwest Kentucky, of the people that had to sacrifice so dearly for our modern day inventions, conveniences pertaining to electricity, pertaining to TVA. Thanks again, and good luck to all of us, as we always end our program by saying, God bless America, God bless America's endeavors, and may we continue to strive forward and towards the pursuit of God and His dominion and what He wants for us, not only here upon the earth, but also in His heavenly domain. Shalom. As I travel through this pilgrim land, there is a friend who walks with me. As I kneel in prayer, I hope to meet you there, precious Jesus, hold my hand. As I kneel in prayer, I hope to meet you there, precious Jesus, hold my hand.